What it do, what it is, y'all. You already know, man. It's more than the title. We back for another episode on our favorite day, which is Pod Day. Y'all know what it is. It's episode 224. I'm your host, as usual, Jarrett, Chief Revenue Officer at Outside the Box Digital. And of course, I got my brother, my brethren, your favorite CEO, Chadeo is good.
Yeah, you see how easy? In alignment, baby. We in alignment. What's up, y'all? You know, we back again. You know, second time for the week. Second favorite day of the week, Pod Day again. You know what I'm saying? And before I get crazy and forget, I'm going to say it right now. Before I introduce Nadege, we got another phenomenal guest because Tuesday I forgot to say phenomenal. Y'all was getting mad at you ain't say phenomenal. So I'm letting y'all know we got another phenomenal guest. But you know how we do, man. We got a lot of testosterone in the building. So, of course, we had to bring the balance in the Hollywood square below me, a.k.a. Nadege. What up, girl?
Yo, what's good, bros? Like you said, today is Pod Day. Happy Friday, Junior.
I never heard that.
Happy what?
Happy Friday,
Happy
Junior.
what?
It's Friday, Junior.
Hell no. No.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I feel like you just
Friday
making shit
Junior.
up at this point. What is Friday Junior? Elaborate on just what is Friday Junior?
Today is Friday, Junior.
It feel like a Friday, but not quite a Friday.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
it's
I've never
Friday.
heard that. I've never heard. Corey, you ever heard
Well,
that?
now you have. Congratulations.
I'm
First
confused
time.
for a second. I was like, today's Friday. What?
I like it. She's stamping it.
Hold on. She had me look at my Dindu cup like, how much did I pour in this motherfucker?
Like you said, we got a great episode. So we got an amazing guest. So who do we got today?
Yeah, I mean, before we introduce him, you know how we like to start the show. G&T, grateful and thankful.
Yes,
This G&T, man, we got some really good news. We're not gonna share all the details, but Jarrett's mom, man, opened up her consulting business. So we share information with you guys to be transparent, right? We told you that his mom was a principal and all that, and she decided to open up a consultation business and still work with the kids and stuff like that. And she just was awarded a nice contract to go in and work with the kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we helped put that together, man. So, you know, G&T to that, man. It goes to show you, man, like the power of the village, man. Look how things come full circle, man. Like, you know, our parents gave to us, and then we were able to turn around and give back to our parents and help them further along what they wanted to do with their careers in the later portions of their life, man. So I'm just super excited, man. I want to say congratulations to mom, man.
Mom.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, mama, you know what I'm saying? Renee. And I'm just thankful again for the fact that we have put ourselves in a position to be able to do that, to be able to give back, man. So that's what G&T is today, man. To the village, man. It starts with us as children and continues with us as adults, man. G&T.
I like it.
Word. You know what I'm saying? Word.
You know, I'm not going to put it up on the screen, but shout out to our distribution partners, the Live Podcast Network, first woman-owned, largest woman-owned, Black-owned podcast network in the world. So if you want more great content, like more than the title, you want some of these vibes, make sure you pull out your phone, download the app, subscribe, and half of your subscription goes to the content creator of your choice, y'all. So we don't just talk it, we walk it. We actually rocking with our own, and we're proud to be a part of the live team. Shout out to Angel and the whole entire team over there. What a time to be alive, you dig?
I'm gonna be alive, baby.
And
you already know.
Let's start.
Let's get the shoulders right. Let's get right, man. First of all, this brother, and for the first time listeners are more than the title, this is a show that goes beyond the description of your title, right? We want to know who you are, what you've done, like, and what the sacrifices you've made in order to get to where you are today. Today's no different. This brother's a real one, straight up. He's someone's putting in the work, making sure Black voices don't just get a seat at the table in podcasting, but we're building our own tables. He's the founder of the Black Podcasters Association, a community he built to educate, connect, and empower Black podcasters and professionals. He also launched BlackPodNews.com, the first trade newsletter created specifically for us, making our stories, opportunities, and industry insights at the front and center. His impact is taking him far. He's also on the board of the Association of Independent Radio. He's also part of the Signal Awards Judging Academy, and he's also a producer and also co-founded his own label, which is Press Record Studios. He's consistently using his skills to build platforms to give others a voice, and he's putting on for the culture, y'all. So once again, y'all have seen him at Podcast Movement. Y'all have seen him at Afros and Audio Festival. You see him putting on in the culture. You see him in the meetups. And now he's here on your favorite podcast for the very first time. Let's introduce our brother, Mr. Corey Gumbs, y'all. Yeah. boy
I'm about to hire y'all to do my intros, man.
Like,
baby.
like it a lot.
Work
You know
out
what I'm
here.
saying?
Love that.
That had me ready to go down the ring like Ric Flair.
I like it. But bro, man, we're honored to have you here, man. First of all, let me just tell the people a quick story how we met up. So we met up last year in DC. So I've been following this brother and the work he's been putting in. Shout out to Liv and shout out to a lot of people that's actually putting in work, man, and actually highlighting Black voices and amplifying them. So we met you at the meetup. We went there. We got a free ticket. I forgot what it was. We came down there, but I remember just seeing you. I'm like, hold up, stop, cuz. I'm like, nah, that's Corey. He's putting it down. Blah, blah, blah. We chopped it up. We broke bread. We had some good conversations, and we're honored to have you here, bro. You know what I'm saying? Because you actually putting in the work.
I'm honored to be here. I'm glad you guys sent me an invite, man. Sometimes, you're so in your space, you forget, like, that the work you're doing and the recognition of it. So I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
That's a fact. We just talked about that, celebrating the wins.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But before
And that's why we celebrated the win today with G&T. That's a win, right? We always talk about the negative, right?
My mom was a principal, so that's a big deal.
There it is, man. There it is.
We love our educators.
Yeah.
That, long story short, I feel like we don't celebrate them enough, right? That's a whole conversation within itself, but we don't celebrate them enough. I know as children, when we in school, we kind of don't want to be there, but essentially, we spend more time with them learning than technically our own parents, depending on, your school schedule and stuff like that. So, I think we need to celebrate them a lot more because they hold the keys to these future generations' success and education levels. You know what I mean? So I think they should be celebrated a lot more than what we do in the moment.
Yeah.
The ones putting in the work. The ones putting in the work. Some crazy ones out there. I don't know if I ever told you. I won't get into the story. But in 5th grade, they arrested my principal.
Wow.
Now I gotta hear something. You gotta give us a light
For child pornography.
Wow.
I was in a Catholic school. Word to mother, bro. They told everybody to go home. I was like, it's one of those days you just dying to go home. They was like, everybody, your parents coming to get you. I said, fuck yeah, da, da, da. And then the next thing you know, on Channel 7, 5 o'clock news, they got him hitting me with the boom bing. Damn. All that motherfucker used to suspend me every other week.
It's crazy.
That's real, but that's another topic that we're gonna do that for real talk. But Corey, you know how we like to start, man. We like to talk from the beginning, man. Talk about your early upbringing, some early influences. So tell us, about growing up, bro, and who influenced you outside of the principles.
Man, I don't, one thing I struggle with in this space is talking about myself. So like, you guys gotta kind of lead me into this. But I get some background. My family, my father's Puerto Rican, my mother's Black. For my family's from Virginia. Actually. Fun fact: one of the first family in Virginia history where a free Black person married a ex-slave. So it's actually in a historical record. That's where my lineage comes from in Virginia. But my mom is with my family on my mother's side with all teachers. My grandfather were principals. My uncle was a music teacher. My mom was a math teacher, and then went into dean at Andrew Jackson High School back in the 80s and 90s, and then became a principal in the later parts of her career. My father was a jazz player, Fernando Gumbs, out of Puerto Rico. On that side, my grandmother was an educator. She worked at the conservatory in Puerto Rico, teaching a lot of the music conservatory. Grandfather did well for himself. So it's like I got a lot of different influences. Even though I grew up with my mother's side, that's still part of, my history. So start with there, but always been into music. That was my thing. Science, music, those always two things I was always into. So it's kind of interesting how, my path took me on that journey. I've done many things, man. I've tried some. I've worked in the developmental disability space for 10 years, 12 years doing that. When I was in my youth, when I was chasing my dream to be a rapper in the music industry, I interned at Def Jam in 96, 97. So I was around for those projects for Foxy Brown launch, Muddy Waters. I was on those 97 Smoking Grooves tour. So all of these experiences have led me to where I'm at right now with this podcasting space. And it's kind of weird how you try to move away from what your parents did and try to find your own way, but it always brings you back to those influences. So, education is a big part of why I did, was one of the main driving forces for me to start the community in the first place, because I always felt like a educated, just anybody educated in their respective industry, they make better decisions and they operate differently. So I got, it's funny. I do that all the time to people, so I got to get used to it when it happens to me. I'm like, message.
Trying to tell you. So I want to make sure I get the lineage right. So you said your father's side of the family is Spanish and your mother is African American, or reverse?
My father, right? Equal, yeah, Puerto Rican.
Yeah, see, right. That's what I said. Okay, so your father's side. So you said, but you grew up with your mother as the main influence.
Yeah, I grew up on this side. Unfortunately, my dad, he wasn't being a dad. So but my mom did well. She did really well for us. Despite all the trials and tribulations and stuff that she went through. But looking, as a kid growing up, you grow up angry. The youth, especially here in New York City, unguided and stuff. So, but looking back, and when you start having your own kids and your own, how could I forget that part? I have 3 wonderful children, 2 boys and a girl. Not 2 boys, 2 adults now, I should say, because they're not boys anymore. Yeah, my oldest, he's gonna be 26 next week. Black don't crack, but
yes, bro, that's love.
Wow.
Yeah, he's. I can't believe it. I still be like, damn, what happened? But yeah, my youngest son just graduated high school, so getting up there.
Congratulations, yeah, congratulations to him, man. The reason I asked you that is because when people are from 2 different cultures and ethnicities and stuff like that, right? Their development is based on what is the primary cultural what cultural layout is primarily pushed within the household. So that's why I asked you that, right?
Yeah.
Because between myself also, I'm Cuban and Black, right? But when I grew up, and it's funny because my mother is actually Spanish, but it was no Spanish, nothing in the household. She don't speak Spanish. She don't want to speak Spanish. So that's why I asked you that, because again, watching these kids grow up nowadays and growing up in a multicultural, family myself, I just wonder, what is it like? Did your mom cook the, Puerto Rican dishes, or introduce you to that type of a culture? Because that helps to mold you. And it also helps you to fit in differently as you're coming up around your surroundings, right? Because if not, then you'll relate more to one than the other. So that's why I asked you that question.
I mean, my family's has, on my father's side, the relationship is real complicated, right? But my mother encouraged it. I remember growing up, we would go visit in the summertime, or after school, during the summer, we would go visit and we would spend time down there for a month or something like that. But for a while there was an identity, you want to, you're not connected to that side of the family, but you're struggling between, and I'm going to say it for sake of conversation, because I have a serious issue with the whole term Afro-Latino and stuff. I'm a huge history buff too, so that's where I have a huge problem with it. But trying to connect that, and then of course, growing up here in America, you got all kind of jokes and stereotypes and stuff. So it was a challenge, and as I got older, and the beauty of it, the good part of it was, I'm coming from a family of educators, so, and my grandparents were very civically involved, so I learned about cultures and just the history of Blackness and here in America, but just as well as on a global scale. So you start to learn more and more. I spent time in the conscious community. I've done the Moorish route. I've done all that stuff. So I've taken all these things, and I think the last couple of times I went to Puerto Rico, I remember when I was younger, in high school, I went to Puerto Rico. My grandfather, he was on the darker side. So he don't, when you think Puerto Ricans, a lot of times people think light skin, and that was, I think that was the first experience I had where he took me in the mountains to go eat, and I was seeing Puerto Ricans blacker than straight, they look like they came straight from Africa, and that was an eye-opening experience. So when people sometimes, some Latinos, especially Puerto Ricans, try to say something, I'll be like, yo, you got cousins darker than me, so I need to chill with the whole colorism and classism stuff that y'all be on sometimes. But as I've gotten older, I just realized, what do they say? It's just a matter to stop, right? We all related, but it's just a matter of where the boat stopped during slavery, during that time. So I try to really bridge those gaps. And that's one of the things when I first started created the community. That was when I saw podcasting as an opportunity, especially as a very new medium, was an opportunity for us to all come together and try to use this medium to have conversations and start to dispel some of the stereotypes and some of the trauma that came from colonialism and and white supremacy and stuff. So that's kind of like my personal mission and what I'm doing too, with that as well. So I have conversations with our Latino counterparts about, like, especially when you see these reports and you see how much overlap, how much we're so alike in regards to our entertainment consumption and how we purchase things and stuff. I'm like, we gotta figure out how to come together and stop and figure out how to get this money together, right? And build these platforms together versus doing it separately. Message. Yeah, you're gonna be doing that all day, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say something to make you laugh. I'm like, nigga, you be asking a question, an explanation within a question. you ask a question, then you explain the question, and then you ask another question.
I'm trying to get. Sometimes I be having so much information in my head, I be trying to get the right words out. You know what I'm saying? Like,
last year I got diagnosed with autism. So that's fine with me because that's how my brain works. So I'm with you on that one.
Oh, okay. So see, that's how it is. Sometimes I just be like having so much information, I be trying to figure out, like, it be moving so fast. But it's important because you can't become the Corey Gumbs that you are today without coming up and experiencing these things in your childhood. You know what I mean? It's an integral part of what shapes you. They're gonna clown me or they're gonna clown me.
And then went right back into an explanation.
He said his brain works that way, so we gotta keep it going.
I got it. I understand.
Okay, before we jump topics, because I want to stay in that lane.
We jump the topic.
No, because you're gonna transition. You're gonna do it without even like realizing it, and then we're gonna do a whole nother section.
I didn't think so.
Oh, but I know so. So, Corey, that was an extremely educated answer. So, growing up in a family full of educators, like, what was that like? Were they really tough on grades? Did they give you a lot of expansive knowledge? Make decisions about what you want, like your likes and passions. Like, what was that like?
It was a struggle for me, because at 48 years old, I found out at 47 I have autism and possibly ADHD, right? So I got a double whammy. So for me growing up, and especially back when I was growing up, a lot of stuff wasn't known. So Black families, he's just shy, or I get the he's just special or whatever. But like I would always keep to myself. I was like, when it came to the education side, I was kind of like the black sheep of the family because that's how I processed it. I wasn't doing well in school. I always struggled with school, but my sisters went away to like these boarding schools, went to Ivy League colleges and stuff. And I used to always tell people I'm smarter than both of them put together. It's just I just didn't apply myself in school because I wasn't interested. It was a challenge. I also have issues with authority, so it was kind of like it was a struggle for me. And I always learned better self-learning. So like I would read books by myself. I would tinker with things. I would, I'd play around, break things and see how they work. So it was more, I was a more visual learner than sitting in class with a book. And so I did struggle. I would get distracted a lot. It was a lot of that stuff. But my grandmother, I think she was the one, she always encouraged it. They didn't like the fact that like I would cut school and I got caught up in all of that stuff. But if you was expecting good grades from me, that wasn't happening. It wasn't going to happen.
Damn, nigga said it ain't gonna happen. I'm just everybody learn different. That's real though, bro. That's the problem.
I'm not saying I had the capacity. It was just I and I didn't get my college degree until I turned 40 because I had this idea of like I could just, which was true. I self-taught. So I was like, what do I need to go to college? Whenever I decided to focus on something, I learned as much as I possibly could from it and go down that rabbit hole. So for me, but I also started learning that I did need a structured environment. I just needed an environment. Actually, I wound up getting kicked out of my high school, shout out to Cardozo, and going to an alternative high school for like the last part of my high school years. I thrived in that school, and it was a smaller environment. It was not as formal. Like we could curse, teachers were cool as hell. Like, we was joke, it was like, it was fun for me, and it was a different learning environment. So I realized that my learning style and how I learned was different. And that's kind of what I bring to what I do here. Everything's going to bring back to what I do now, but I learned that stuff because I learned you got to meet people where they're at versus saying, this is how you have to do things.
Yeah. That's real, bro. And I just happen to have Cardozo orange on too. I ain't know.
I mean, I'm in Queens, so if you can see the orange and the blue, you know.
That's
You
real.
got your hat. I should have worn my Mets hat, but you know.
Word, bro. And also, like, so getting out of school, like you said, you also did a lot of different various work, right? So what other work did you do? And I want to kind of lean into the medium of podcasting, which was maybe about 20 years old, if that, right?
Yeah.
Like audio's always been there, but the term podcast.
I like to ruffle some feathers because I know they credit to certain people at certain times, but I remember being called podcasting in the early 2000s before the official term, right?
Yeah.
I stumbled onto it. So like I've done like my mom, that one of us sidebar, my mom has always been entrepreneurial. They had a very successful travel business. You know, if you wanted your sneakers or whatever, me and my sister we worked in that business. So like that's where, so I've always been entrepreneurial. Like when I was in high school, I wanted to be a rapper. That's all I was, just music, right? That's all I wanted to do was music. Like a lot of teenagers wanted, and we had a really good group, but you know, we didn't have the resources and what we have now. I always tell my son, like, if I had now what we had, you know, what you guys have now, it'd have been crazy, right? But right, like we had YouTube and we had the way to distribute the music. But the funny part was, I got a job working at an internet cafe. You know, I'm aging myself now, out in Long Island, and which was a wild place to put it, but you know, it was in a residential area, so business was, you know, people have computers at home. But I met this kid there that was building websites, and since I had time and I had this idea, I wanted to create this website called don'tgetjerked.com because I was watching the whole Napster thing with the music industry trying to shut down Napster and all that stuff. And I was like, you know, all I could do was watch business news all day long in there. So I was like, this is big, like, and I saw it coming, and I remember pitching to my friends that I was doing music with, and I was like, yo, bro, like, we need to get ahead of this, like, we need to get on the internet with our music. And we were in a bad management deal, and you know, we kind of got ourselves out of it. But I was like, just from what I learned in my time in the music industry, interning at Def Jam, just learning the business side, because when you want to be an artist, you're thinking from the artist point of view. Once you get in the industry, you start realizing, seeing things, and you're like, I learned for myself that I wasn't really built for the industry. So I just wanted to be in the studio. I wanted to make music, and that's it. I didn't want to deal with the business side of it, but I knew it was important. And I started a website called don'tgetjerked.com, and I'm 21 years old. I'm making $8 an hour. I don't even know how I was paying this dude, because back then building a website was like thousands. It was expensive, and he was working with me and stuff. And we started the process and was building it. But then I found I was gonna be a dad. So you got to make decisions, and I decided that I was going to not be like my dad and take care of my son. And so the money started going towards that. But that's how I got into programming, because this kid used to build websites for my boss. So I'll be sitting there doing nothing. So he started teaching me, and I was like, well, I can't pay the guy. I learned to build it myself, which is kind of my attitude, and that's where my attitude comes from. It's like, well, I'm not gonna sit around and wait for somebody to give me. I'm just build it ourselves. We'll just figure out how to build it ourselves, right? Build it. And it's going to be long. It's going to be harder, but the goal is to ownership, control. And the only way you can really do that is you got to build it yourself. And then that just led into me starting this website, and I stumbled on the podcast and just surfing the web for something. I don't even remember how I did. I just remember finding an RSS feed and this player, and used like news groups. Like that was a big thing on the internet back in the days, where you found the link and you put it into a player and you get all your news and all that stuff. People were making audio on and they had an app, and you just put the RSS feed and you could listen to the audio. I was like, man, this would be great for artists, because part of the Don't Get Jerked was to create a space where the artists had their page, they could sell their music. I was like, I'm trying to remove you from the industry, because you don't need it, because you could distribute the music yourself. So like when MySpace added music, I was like, damn. And then when Facebook and Twitter came out, I was like, damn, because we were going to do all those kind of things. That was part of the process, was like a place where the artist had a page where they could communicate with their audience directly. They could sell their music. They can make, they can connect, and they would keep the majority of the proceeds. So when I stumbled on the podcast, and then I was like, man, this is dope. Like an artist can record audio and talk directly to the audience and stuff. And but life. Kids getting older, you got to get better paying jobs and stuff, and life took over, and I got caught into the job trap. And I did find a job that I truly enjoyed when I was working with people with developmental disabilities, and I worked my way up to managing a group home, and that's where the leadership skills started to develop, because I had to lead teams and do trainings and stuff like that. So But I had to take care of my son. Unfortunately, his mom he came to live with me at 2 years old, so I raised him until he was 15. And his mom wasn't the most most motherly person, I'll say. And I raised them. So you got to make decisions based off of that. And then it kind of like that whole dream of getting that website off the ground went just remained an idea. And then 2013, my boy sent me a podcast, and I was like, people still doing this? I didn't even realize how big it was. I had the app on my iPhone and never paid attention to it.
Facts.
And I started listening to podcasts, and my boy's in tech, and he's a programmer, and we just talk politics and science and tech, and people would hear it and be like everybody else, you should start a podcast. And that's how I got into the business, because we were going to start a podcast, but this was pre-remote. So he lives in Baltimore, I live in New York. We were trying to figure out how we were going to do it. And then when Nori came out with his format, we were like, we could probably do something similar, like, and go to different cities and meet with guests, and and just get a hotel room and just get the equipment and lock it down like that. So that was how we got into, like, that's how I basically got back into podcasting.
Motherfuckers don't know how costly that is, though. Woo! They don't know how costly it is to podcast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I knew, because our equipment was just crazy, but that's something I tell people. I always let whenever I meet a person that wants to get into podcasts, I let them know. Like, I always ask them, like, how do you plan to finance it? Because it's an expensive hobby. So I always try to move them into more like taking an approach of, this is a business, and you should look at it as a business. Whether you're trying to get donations or just get money to pay for your production costs, at the end of the day, IRS, you get donations, IRS is gonna come looking for you. Like, they want their money, right? No matter what, you got to report it. So you might as well treat it like a business and carry it as such.
Message.
Yeah.
I got a question, because me and Cuzzo used to do music and stuff like that. So you ain't got to go too far in depth, but what was like the moment, or what was the kind of crazy thing that kind of happened within the business of music that really made you be like, nah, this ain't for me? Because I've been in them offices, so I would love to hear your take on it.
Being 18, 19 years old, a hothead, I wasn't mature enough. I took, I still am a hothead, but so I do take things personally sometimes. And what it was I don't do well with politics and stuff, and like kissing ass and all that stuff. So it's like, it's kind of hard you got to navigate that. And there would be some times where I would get into it with some people, just because I didn't like how they talked to me. And the funny part was, I used to only drink beer when I was 18, 19, but we was drinking 40s and all that stuff. I got introduced to hard liquor, and that didn't help either. So like, but I think the big part was, and this is something about part of my diagnosis that I'm learning. Like, I take things literally. So when somebody says you're going to go on tour, and we're going to pay you for going on tour, and when you come back, we're going to put you on payroll, and then when you come back, they tell you, oh, well, you're in school, because I was in school full time and I was doing that. When you was in school, you're in school, and we care about your education, and we think it's going to interfere with your education. Meanwhile, for a whole year, I was working for y'all damn near more than overtime, right? Like, literally, we would go on these campaigns. So I was on the street team. We would go on these campaigns where I'm coming home at 5 o'clock in the morning. I go in the house, I shower, eat my breakfast, change my clothes, go to school, do my day at school. They pick me up from school, and we hit the streets for the rest of the night, clubs, all that stuff. And I did that for 2 weeks straight. So I'm like, and I'm doing my homework in the car. I'm like, when I'm doing all that stuff, I'm catching my winks. I'm doing everything in the car, because I was chasing my dream. I didn't like, school was secondary in what I was trying to do, but I still was doing my education. And then for you to turn around, and I think and how I reacted to that, I think it was when I realized I'm not built for this, because I didn't react well to it, and I didn't handle it like I should have handled it.
You snuff somebody? Sound like you might have, fuck you. You cool? Fuck you.
I mean, I was pissed off. I'll say that much. I was pissed off, and I didn't have guidance. So like, I was just a hothead, and I'm not gonna say I was from the streets, but I dibbled and dabbled in it, and I hang around people. So it's kind of like, but the person who broke the news to me was a woman, so I wasn't gonna like hit her or anything. I was just pissed off, and I said some words, and and I just stormed out of there, and I was like, F y'all, I'm out. And I'll just build, in my mind, I was like, I'll just go do my own thing, and I'll try to figure out how to build my own thing.
takes a lot of courage.
Yeah. So, but lessons were learned. I look back at the time, and it was a great experience, man. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about entertainment and and shout out to a lot of those people, man. And, it was a great experience. I will never trade that experience. And sometimes I do wish back I could go back and just be like, yo, bro, just sit down, listen to what they got to say, and just counter what they're saying with more reasonable a way of saying it. But it is what it is. But I'm here now, so
it's the battle, and we talk about that all the time of doing something that you actually love or you feel like is your purpose and you want to do it, versus you being in an environment that you don't feel like is conducive to your mental well-being or is being productive for you. Like when do you draw the line? You know what I mean? Because you're absolutely right. Like when I was there, I learned a lot, bro. Like, you understand? I learned because once you get in the door and they consider you like the inside team, then you're in there for the meetings. They're gonna talk freely around you. If you want to learn something, you can just walk into a studio or something and watch something. And if anybody sees that you're dedicated, they'll teach you.
Yeah,
they'll teach you. That's how I learned a lot of my stuff, by just going to studios and sitting down and be like, yo, I want to learn engineering and I want to like, yo, all right, sit in the back, watch what I do, shut up. And then after the sessions, ask questions, or you know what I mean? Or you could watch, but you know what I mean? And then we'll talk later. And so it's a great environment for learning, but you have to know what your goal is, because you can often spend a lot of time there and not progress if you don't know like what progression looks like and what you're shooting for.
Yeah, some people have to be in the room.
Yeah,
it also taught me my work ethic, because I was busting my ass, and I didn't get caught. I didn't get starstruck. So like if I had a mailing to do, like get these records out, it didn't matter who was in the office, I had to get these mailing out. Like, and that was I seeing how people would act, especially like the young kids and the interns that I worked with. It would be like, yeah, that's cool, but I gotta get these records out. And it was recognized. I think that was the first time, despite whatever issues I had, I think that was the first time I actually got like real recognition for the work that I did, and it wasn't like fanfare, but it would be like, yo, I see what you're doing, or somebody would joke around with you and bust your balls about something, but it was kind of like they recognize what you're doing, and they would trust you to do certain things. And that was like when I started learning, like a lot of these things helped me when I started managing people and started moving into leadership roles, of recognizing like, oh, okay, now I remember, now I know what they were doing and why they did it that way.
That's awesome. No, I want to know, what was the thing that sparked you to pivot into podcasting, like really getting into this?
I mean, I was a fan first. I love science. I love educate. Like I love intellectual stuff. So I was listening to like a lot of science podcasts, intellectual podcasts and stuff. And like I said, when my friend and people would hear us talking about stuff, they would like do a podcast. So we're like, all right, let's see how this goes. And I think that's how I got into the business side of it. My background's in audio, so it was easy to transition into it. Actually, I went back to school to brush up my programming skills, and I was driving Uber, and I had a car accident. I got rear-ended right in Queens, about 3 cars right before Christmas, and I was like,
I had to give you.
I was mature. He said it. I said I will not do it.
I let like 4 or 5 pass earlier. It was huge. He said I saw it coming. It was a few other ones.
Guys, yo, man, you can't even talk, yo.
I'm being mature, Corey, because
from the block.
Do right, like
the rear ended was crazy, but
I mean,
I felt where you was going, so I'm like, nah, I'm gonna let go.
When he told me, when he told me about that, I was like, I thought I was avoiding it, but clearly I've been giving you like just giving it to you like, oh, see, look, I've been giving you
Pause.
You saw my hand up here. I didn't touch the button. That's his ass.
Anyway, yo, like so, man, listen, man, y'all.
So you got into a car accident.
The car accident. A bunch of cars hit the back of the car. I got injured. Okay. It was a lot of pain. Like I tore my rotator, tore my meniscus, my back was messed up. So I had no peace. I couldn't get no sleep, and I basically had to give up school because I couldn't concentrate. And the messed up part was I was in the last leg of school, but of the course I was in. But I was like, all right, I got this free time. Now it's time to concentrate on building the podcast. And I just did like what everybody else did. I went to YouTube University. I just started learning, watching people. And which is one of the amazing things about this space, because those people like now I call friends and I have conversations with, and I break bread with them, which is wild to me. But I just, I had all this free time, so I was just learning, and I'm gonna shout him out, Shannon Hernandez. He's a radio host out in Arizona, but he has a channel, and he had an audio setup, and behind him, he wasn't in his normal recording, and he was on site. And of course, me being the music person, I'm trying to like look behind him, see his setup, because I'm like, hold up, I didn't know you could do that, right? So I actually reached out to him and was like, yo, like, what are you working with? Can you tell me? He got on a call with me, and he told me what he was doing, how he did. We spoke like for 2 hours. So I'm always indebted to him for the time he spent, because I decided to start my own mobile podcast recording studio. I needed something that I could work when I felt like it, when I was able to. And so for 2018 going into 2019, I just was working on building that, and took my last $2,000 out my savings, because when I was driving Uber, it was post-divorce. I was getting my life back together. I was trying to get back into real estate investing, so I was like, I did that too. Get back into real estate investing, was working on my credit, saving money, and then I had the car accident, and then that just like blew everything. So took my last $2,000, went to Guitar Center, had this crazy idea starting like a mobile recording studio where I go to people, because I didn't have the money for overhead for a studio and the build out and all that. So I was like, let me bring the studio to you. Spent 2 hours with those brothers in there telling them my idea. Had to call a couple people to send me a couple of extra dollars, but I walked out there with my first iteration of Black Podcast mobile studio, and spent all of 2019, got a couple clients, was working on that, improving, learning how to record remote, record in a non-recordable environment. And funny story, towards the end of 2019, it was like, all right, I got my reps in. I think I know how I want to do this. I was practicing on how to build, like how to put my equipment up and break it down within I had a whole system, like, coded system and all that stuff on how to put my because it was like time, like I got 15 minutes to set up and 15 minutes to break down and move on to the next situation, client, travel time, all that. So I was testing all that stuff out. And in 2019 on my calendar, I was like, March 2020, launched the business officially. I was going to spend that winter working on my business plan, getting everything together. And as we know, March 2020, COVID hits New York. And that's when I was like, oh man. And like, I saw it coming, because, I was paying attention to the news, and I was like, I used to tell people, like, when it hits here in New York, we're in trouble. I live in Southeast Queens by JFK. I was like, when it hits that airport, it's a wrap for our community, with all the health issues and stuff. And lo and behold, that's what happened. And it wasn't until somebody I knew passed away that I was like, oh, this is serious. I can't do that business. And I had to pivot, and I was caught in limbo. And people were like, oh, you should get into consulting. But I had started the Facebook group. And when that, this is like one door closes, literally, I heard my grandmother, one door closes, another one opens. And that's where this 4 years later, this is where I'm at. So the Facebook group turned into what eventually became the Black Podcasters Association. But and during that time period, as a bunch of people jumped into podcasting. It went from like 200 members in March of 2020 to like 1,800 members in September of 2020. So I was just trying to figure out, like, how do I want to do this? I knew I wanted to monetize it, and I knew I wanted to educate people, but that's just basically how I got here.
We asked, I don't know if y'all thinking this too, but how did you figure out the monetization model, right? How many iterations of that did you go to find what you have today?
I'm still going through it, but
wait, hold on. Message. That's real.
Yeah, I mean, when I didn't know what I was doing, so I always tell people, like, I don't even now, sometimes I still don't know what I'm doing. I'm just blessed to have a great network around me that offers a lot of advice and steps up and wants to help. But when I first started, my model was, and Chadeo, you're gonna understand this. I was like ASCAP, right? Because I remember ASCAP used to do trainings and stuff, and like songwriter workshops and stuff. So I was like, that's the education component I wanted to do. And I was like, okay, advocacy, because the whole purpose why I even started the group, and a friend called me out. I was complaining about being in the Facebook groups, and I just felt like how people of color were being treated. And I was just like, and meeting people saying how like they would hire somebody and they would want them to code switch. And I was like, we need to have a place where we could just talk how we need to talk, ask the questions we need to answer. And at that time, I also wanted a place where I could figure out how to communicate with our community in a way that they don't feel attacked, but we had to raise the standard of the type of product we were putting out, audio wise, content wise, without it being attacking or divisive. So That's where it came from. The monetization part was I knew I wanted to have some kind of organization where it was membership because I wanted to pay people to come in and do these trainings. I didn't want to come out of my pocket, so I was like, what's the best way? Membership dues. But I was trying to figure it out that year, and like I didn't know a lot, like I didn't know what I was doing, and it wasn't until I saw a post from somebody, because it was like a Wild West, you know, everybody wants to promote, and there's all these conversations going on. It was just so much content, and somebody had asked a question. They were struggling, and I didn't see that question for like 2 weeks. Now, mind you, I was damn near lived in my Facebook group, so like you going to bed, you waking up, I'm in the Facebook group, right? So that was a running joke with a lot of members. To this day, still a running joke, like Corey go to bed, right? So. But I saw this thing, and I don't know why it just resonated with me, because it was like 2 weeks, and I was like, here was somebody, the real reason why I started this group, and I missed them, right? And I remember us responding, and they never responded. So I was like, was this a person who was on the verge of leaving, and it was desperate for her? I don't know. To this day, I still don't know. But in my mind, it just went down that route, and that's when I was like, okay, I'm shutting off promotion, everything in here is strictly about questions, answers, and education. And I knew that that's kind of shaped where we were going to go as a community, and how I was going to start the monetization model, because it was like zero tolerance policy for advertising, promoting. I'm like, you're preaching to the choir. Like, this is not your audience. Your audience is outside of here when you want to promote. So, but that we can talk about that for days, but that mentality behind that. But at the end of the day, and then I spoke at Afros and Audio when we went remotely, and Talib came to me. And I knew of Talib, and I knew what he was doing. I was sad that I had missed the year before. I didn't even know. I found out about Afros a year after their first iteration, and or the second or third iteration, but whatever it was. But I remember I at the behest of some of my members, they were like, go speak at Afros and Audio. So I did it. Never done that before. And after that, Talib reached out to me, and I always wanted to do a conference. He needed a community where he felt was good enough to send people to, where they could continue their learning after Afros and Audio. And we just came together, and that's how we started that was the first iteration of the Black Podcast Association. He had a platform that I couldn't afford. I'm gonna keep it real. And we just came together and was like, all right, I'm gonna move from Facebook to this platform. And what made me move from Facebook was when one day it shut down, and I was going to do a live in the group, and I had no way of communicating with people. So I was like, this is not going to work. Right. So and from there, we just took it from there. And part of the model was, I remember we did this whole presentation to the members of the Facebook group, and we were telling about all the things we're going to do and what this is going to be. And, you know, of course, the big question is how much? And I just remember we said the price, and somebody was like, oh, I thought this was going to cost like $600 or something. And I just remember sitting there going like, damn it, man. And I learned a lesson about, you got to go out and you got to kind of figure out, you got to do some testing to see what people are willing to pay for, you know. But honestly, the real premise of it was, and I remember when Talib and I having this discussion, was we didn't want to nickel and dime people either. We wanted this to be affordable, because for me, I'll speak for myself. My mentality was, yeah, I could charge you X amount of dollars, but would that money be better suited if you hired an editor, hired a VA, ran some Facebook ads? So yeah. I was like, we'll charge a fee because I think people value what they pay for. But I'm like, could I do $97 a month like everybody else does? Yeah, we could do that. But my goal is to get you from point A. My philosophy has always been, a year from now, I want you to be in a different place than when you first joined. And I understand. I understand that people are working, they have families, they have other responsibilities, and at the end of the day, if you price them out of it, they're going to make a decision at some point. If things go sour for them, you're going to be the first one to go. So I had to keep it at. So I was like, let me keep it at a reasonable fee, and then we'll still give them what they want. If I could go back in time and change, I might have made it a little bit more expensive, but I don't regret doing it.
That's real.
A lot of people use the tier system to kind of help with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because different people find value in different things, and they're willing to pay different prices depending on the value they see in the product. And that's just really the bottom line. That's why pricing is so difficult, because one person might see value A and person B might see value B, and it's two completely different things, right? But you still have to be able to keep the lights on and provide a certain type of service and things of that nature. So I think this is where a lot of creators struggle with including us, right? When we're doing stuff and people are asking us how much and stuff like that, because of the simple fact that there's not a lot of forums or groups out there that are open and honest and saying, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm charging, this is what kind of worked for me and didn't work for me. Everybody's kind of like hush hush. It baffles me. It really baffles me because I understand like you don't want nobody counting your pockets, but technically you're not really helping the situation, you're hurting it, right? Because now if people come in way lower than you with a similar product and they get that traction and you're like, yo, why would you charge that? That's not enough. Well, I didn't know what to charge. So you understand what I'm saying? It's one of those like, what you think? Because that we have this conversation about it. You know, people do value transparency. We have this conversation all the time, Corey. At the end of the day, a lot of people, life be lifing. So you might be serious today and not serious tomorrow, right? Because something happened, like you said, car accident, family, you know, things of that nature. I think the average is it 8 episodes, Cuzzo? Is it 8?
8 episodes.
They say like, yeah. Right. Yeah. Most people that start a podcast do about 8 episodes and then they stop. So, you know, it's the difference between people that want to do it for business and people that just want to do it for a hobby, for therapy. You understand what I'm saying? Like both, how do you provide value to both people? And I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah, Cuzzo.
I think we put a lot of emphasis on value, and value is subjective.
Yeah, it is.
You know what I'm saying? Value is subjective, bro. Like that's the hardest part about the pricing thing, right? Like, so same thing, like what I would say, like somebody who, for instance, let's talk about LinkedIn courses. Everybody sells LinkedIn courses. We have a LinkedIn course, right? But my LinkedIn course is going to hit different to Jaden, who's a black person, look just like me, been through a similar situation, and I'm speaking his language versus you going to buy the $200 course from Justin Welsh. Right. So he may value that. Oh, I only paid $97. I would have paid the $250, right? And people from Justin Walsh might say that, you know, it's just all subjective, and it's hard finding that. But like you said, we got to end up talking to each other. What are you charging for this? What is this? What is the services that you are providing, right? How do you optimize your business? This is why we have these conversations, bro. It's not to be all in your business, but it's like, yo, there's somebody right now that's listening that hears this shit and is like, yo, I'm struggling with the same question. What did you do? And we need to hear these questions. We need to hear it. And I appreciate you being real.
Well, for me, I also had to remember what, like, I also think, you know, when you're thinking about it too, is like, this is a business. I want to make money, but where do I want to make the money, and or off of who do I want to make the money, right? So for me, it was, what is the mission of what I'm like, what is this mission? What is the most important part? Is it the money part or is it the mission part? And for me, it really is the mission part, because I'm playing the long game here. And I'm like, if you build a good product, I'm gonna just keep it real. My goal is to make this an institution in the industry. The money's gonna come. Like we're gonna figure out the money part. But I gotta make sure that this has impact. It has impact. It's actually producing change for people, both as an industry, and, you know, I had to change my rhetoric over the past couple of years, because now I look at us as ambassadors to this industry, versus where I had, when I first started, it was like an isolationist view. It was like, listen, the music industry, the movie industry, TV industry built off the backs of black people and people of color. We always, and then it wasn't until even hip hop, you know, growing up in the 90s and stuff, seeing how hip hop saved the music industry in the mid 90s, right? And look at the effect 30 years later. It's changed the culture of the world. And it's like, when those industries start to dry up and they look at us because they gatekeep us, but we always figure out how to make money, right? We have rappers that became huge stars because they sold records out of the trunk of their car, right? You can't, you know, like, I look at it that way, and I'm like, how do we create this institution that makes sure that it's impactful to our audience, not just, and honestly, you don't even have to be a member of the BPA. I'm still advocating. I'm still trying to make changes for creators of color across the board, right? Like, but I would love for you to be in the BPA, like, you know, that's the goal. It's, you know, but for me, the pricing comes from the mission, and it comes from also, like, for me, like if I was to have you guys come and do a workshop, we're in an industry where people, you know, they have you come and do a workshop for their conference or their workshop or their event. They charge a lot of, and I do the math. I'm like, okay, you had 500 people in here. You charge $99. You're gonna tell me you had 12 speakers. You couldn't give them $100 each for an hour of their time, or give them some kind of compensation. And then you keep replaying it and you keep promoting it, and so you're continuously making money off these people. And I likened it to the music industry when dudes would be like, yo, give me a beat for free. When I blow up, you're gonna get. And I'm like, bro, just give me something, man. Like you're not a unicorn. Like, you're not Lil Wayne, or I ain't stumbled onto you. Like, and I hate to talk like that, but we worked in studios and you like, this dude ain't going nowhere. Like, if you ever did record session, you like, I'm gonna take your money, but this ain't going far. But I always wanted to do good business, especially for Black people and people of color and marginalized groups in this space, and wanted to make sure that, because it's so hard for us to get compensated fairly, I was like, I don't want to be a part of that system. Now, I will say this: we have people who've come in and say, I don't want anything from you. I just want to do this. But I always let them know, like, this is not how I want to operate. But I'm not gonna fight you when you're not gonna take the money from me, but that's also tells you that you built something that people value and it's worthy to them too. So, these are a lot of lessons I learned these past 4 years in doing what I'm doing. And the value thing, I'm still reading books. I still learn. There's a lot of testing. Like, I eventually had to raise the prices of our yearly membership and our monthly membership, because it's just not, especially for the things I want to do. And I over deliver in the community, right? We offer a lot. So I'm like, I also think with pricing, it also helps you determine who you want there. That's another thing you have to consider when you're pricing there. And I'm not gonna lie, I want dead serious people in my community. I want people who are going to take what they're doing seriously.
There it is.
That are going to invest in themselves, invest in what they're doing, and by doing that makes the community itself better. So that's why I was like, I gotta raise the prices too, because I don't want tire kickers. I don't want people coming in here trying to take advantage of people. I'm very protective of my community, and I was like, we raise these prices, it's gonna be the people that I'm really seeking. So it's hard, and and you might have a philosophical concern or issue with it. You got to find a balance and try to figure out. Like, I don't know why in our community people think because you can't make money and still do good. You know what I'm saying? Do good things with that money. But I'm very against that mentality of like people people have to be poor in order to do good. Poor people do evil things too. So that's how I look at it. So like, get your money, figure it out, but make sure that it's bringing value and it's impactful to the audience that you're doing. And that's the best thing I can say about that.
But that's why I like the tier system. That's why I like the tier system so much, because it will separate the people and their level of commitment. Because realistically, you give it away for free, everybody will come. Everybody will come, so to speak, because it's free, right? Mm-hmm. But then, like you said, you're gonna have people that don't care about the community. They don't have the same goals. They don't have the integrity, and you're gonna get that, right? But when somebody pays for something, it changes their mind about how they feel about what service or what item they paid for. Whether it's $1, $100, that doesn't matter. When you pay for something, you're like, yo, I paid for this.
Right.
Now your expectations are a little higher, stuff like that. Also, when you see this tier system, it lets you know, like, yo, this is a package for people that are serious. It starts to now fine tune the people that get there. And then you can get the better, the people to come back and say, yo, I did this, I did that. And now I want to give back as a mentor and stuff like that because it helped me. But you have to start somewhere. I do believe that it should be some sort of free, because people are struggling and there's always going to be people that don't have it. Give them the basics. But once we start really getting into like, different things, monetize all these other things, I definitely believe it should be some type of a tier system.
The freemium model.
Yeah.
That's what
I eventually moved to that. We didn't have a free tier, and I did kind of the opposite. I just had a strictly paid tier, right. And then after having some conversations of just like I felt it was important to have a free tier, not only just to create a funnel system for people to go into the paid tier.
Right.
Also, I felt like the conversations we're having as a community, it shouldn't be gate capped, right?
Right.
Like, you get a very limited experience with the free tier, because I do want you to invest, into the platform that we're building, and I want to be able to hire staff, and I want to be able to create this organization. But I was like, you're better off in the BPA engaging in conversations in here than you do in some of these Facebook groups, and that's my mentality about it. Mm-hmm. I always use the death row reference. you don't want to produce a dancing in your video, come over here to Death Row. Like, and I feel that way about BPA, about the Black Podcast Association. When you're done with the dancing and stuff, come over here.
You do like Suge Knight a little bit too. You can be a stand there. You got some Suge to you, bro.
I don't know. I like it, man.
I got the height. I got the weight. I ain't got the height.
I like it. It's a struggle for our community, Corey. It's a struggle, man. Coming up back in the day, like you said, even with music. I don't know if you can see. I'm in my studio now.
I was looking at the speakers.
Yeah, like shit was expensive. Like you said, bro. Like shit was expensive. We used to go to Sam Ash and Guitar Center, and we used to have the keyboard was $4,000. You know what I mean? Like, but it's separated. Like I said, like for people that wanted to rap, right? When I had my studio in the Bronx, I would do the same thing as an engineer. They come in, I charge you, and I'd be like, yo, bro, because then you start giving them too much feedback. They feel like you hating, and I'm like, bro, this ain't really what it is. I'm gonna charge you, but you should change this up and kind of write this better. You kind of wasting time, but
right.
When you get invested and you actually care about something, you move differently. But it is a very expensive, like you said, hobby, music, any type of entertainment. Eventually, you got to start getting equipment and you got to start getting the things that you need to elevate your craft. If you don't want to keep it as a hobby, or if you just want to elevate your hobby, but you have to invest. So I think we got to figure this thing out.
And it's the learning curve. The learning curve too. People, you don't hear people talk about that part, the investment in that part, because like doing video, I talk about this. It took me. I used to watch hours of video on cinematography and lighting and stuff like that on YouTube to learn about lighting and stuff like that. So, like if you saw if you outside the screenshot, it's quite chaotic in here, but you couldn't tell, right? But
right.
There is a learning curve, also a time investment in that part.
Yeah. Okay. I got like a 2-part question. So part one, like podcasting has, done massive changes over the last decade. What are some changes you've seen, and where do you think we're heading in podcasting? Then part 2, we're going to go into saucer segment. I always like to tell our audience, you should never pour from your cup. You should fill yourself up. Once whatever's runneth over into your saucer, that's what you're supposed to pour into others. So if you can pour some advice, knowledge to the young people, to the seasoned people who want to get in this space, who want to elevate in this space.
Man, the future of podcasting is a hard one, because it's despite the age of it, it's still in its infancy, right? And it's still sorting itself out. I want to give credit. I think I know who told me this, but I don't want to credit the wrong person. But I'm always reminded, like a lot of times in this industry of podcasting, most people, we don't know what we're doing. A lot of us are learning as we're going along. So when you hear data and you hear people drawing these lines in the sand, take it with a grain of salt, because as we've seen, the Spotify experiment, everybody was hyped about that failed, right?
Yeah.
Or by going by what they say, it failed on how they reacted to shutting it down. And the celebrity podcast, we see that failed. The industry concerns about the CPM model that you hear, and the disparities in payment of that with creators versus the top 1% of podcasting. So I see podcasting eventually doing what, like, I liken what I see going on in podcasting to what we saw in the early 2000s with the tech boom, the first tech boom, which was all this money is being tossed around, everybody's trying to figure it out, and then it crashes, and then it starts to sort itself out. Like almost 2 years ago, we had all those layoffs going on. We're still getting news of these production companies being shut down and integrated into these bigger platforms, like what happened with Wondery recently. So I don't have a real prediction. I just say I look at it like, where are the gaps that we can fill, and where are the needs in this for the people that are in it. I will say this: the podcast industry has to remember its roots. It has to always remember that the independent creator is the one that keeps it sustained. Meaning, if only they like to throw the stat out there about how there's 5 million podcasts, but when you look at how many active podcasts, it's only like 15. It's less than 20% of those 5 million are actually active. And I always present, so if there's 5 million podcasts, if everybody that's not active decided to cancel their subscription to their hosting services, what's going to happen? You're going to have a calamity. These companies are going to go bankrupt. Some of these companies are probably teetering on bankruptcy, because of the independent podcaster. So the industry is going to have to turn its sights inside and say, how do we move, how do we protect ourselves by doing this? That's just my opinion on it. And we're kind of seeing that happening with some of these conferences where they're having low turnout. People are not going to them. And I think that's across the board with a lot of industries, but they're making them more expensive, least accessible. But the person who's going to willing to pay the ticket and want to come to these events are not doing it anymore because they either can't afford it or the value's not there. You go one time, you're like, this was not what I expected it to be. I'm not going to do it again. Whatever the reason they have, but I think the independent podcaster, there's going to have to be some kind of push to bring those people like ourselves up to the forefront in this industry and start respecting the creator space and start actually compensating them in a fair manner. I'm also going to talk about just us as Black people in this space. The news of podcast movement and what happened with them consolidating and with and now doing stuff with South by Southwest and all. Sounds profitable. Is raising a lot of concerns for a lot of people. On our side in regards to representation, this diversity. If the podcast industry wants to succeed, it has to be diverse. It's global now. I remember when it wasn't global. My first editor was in I think Argentina or whatever, and he was like, "Do you have any work? Do you have any work?" And I'm like, "Bro, it's coming. Just be patient. I know you need the money. I don't have as much clients as I would like. I can give you what I can give you." But I'm like, bro, now I call him and he's just to check on him. And he's so busy because it's become a global industry. And a lot of the old, the foundational people, I'll say, are threatened because they don't have market share anymore. They can't gatekeep like they used to. So I will say that you're going to see more of our communities becoming I don't like to be hope. I don't like to wish and hope. I like to do. I see a lot of us starting to build our own platforms and do and find these gaps and fill these gaps and do like what we did with hip hop when they said hip hop was a fad. We started learning how to press our own records. We started learning how to do take control of our destiny. In that retrospect. So that's why I see it going. The second question, just remind me again, because I'll be on soapbox sometimes.
No,
it's okay.
This is your segment.
Yes, so this is my segment.
Okay.
We call it From the Saucer, trademark ending. So I always like to tell our audience, you should never pour from your cup. You're supposed to pour from your saucer. You're supposed to fill yourself up, and then whatever's runs over into the saucer is what you pour into others. So if there's any excess knowledge that you would like to share, with our audience,
I'm screwing my face up because I haven't learned to master that. I'm passionate, so I just jump in. Sometimes it's at my own detriment. Sometimes I don't think about my own situation, and I'm cool with that. Sometimes that's leadership. Sometimes you do have to jump. You got to be the first one on the field when nobody. I play a lot of football and I do a lot of sports references too. Sorry guys, but I think for anyone watching, part of me is like, just do it. Like, you don't want to get analysis paralysis, but I think I think part of my issue with the industry has always been, especially for people coming, I always joke around and tell, when I meet clients, I'm like, you don't want to do this. It reminds me, I don't know if you guys saw the Dewey Cox story when he kept introducing them to different drugs and he was like, you don't want to do this, Dewey. And then he gives it to him. I'm kind of like in that space, but I think you got to educate yourself. I think, like I said earlier, if you're going to get into this, you got to look at it like a business. You got to treat it as such. You should. You're spending a lot of money and time. And when I talk to clients, I think one of the parts of the conversation that we don't have when people start podcasts is you don't talk to your family. You don't talk to your spouse. You don't talk to the people around you. I'm not saying you need their permission, but I think part of the problem why people only get to 8 episodes is they don't realize not just the work that it takes to run a podcast and stay consistent with it. I don't think they're prepared for the consequences of it when they have to, when their spouse doesn't understand what they're doing and it's not getting the traction, and then you just sold them a dream to spend all this money to buy this $500 microphone and this Rodecaster and this camera, And they're like, well, I gave you a window and it's not turning out. I think there needs to be a conversation, a real conversation. And I don't work with people until they have those conversations with their significant other and spouses and family, because it's a ripple effect. You're taking money, but you may not even be able to afford it, and putting it into this thing. And I think that's an important part of the conversation. I think, like I said, education. I think a lot of people aren't prepared for when they come into podcasting. I think they think it's simple. You see somebody doing it, I can do that, right? I can have that conversation. I can talk better than this person. And then you realize it's not that simple. I think another thing would be, you got to know who your audience is, right? You got to know who you're talking to. My brain, I'm an engineer, so I always say, what's the problem? And I reverse engineer from it. So when I work with clients and when I talk to people, I'm like, when I listen to your podcast, if I listen to all your episodes of your podcast, what should be the emotion? What should I be doing? What's the call to action for that person? Like, should they be more knowledgeable about a subject? Should they know how to do whatever it is you're teaching them in that podcast? Should they have a certain type of an opinion? And then you reverse engineer it from there. Because then now you know where the goal is. Now you know what steps it takes to get them to that point where you're just throwing stuff against the wall, trying to figure out where it works, is where I think a lot of that failure comes from with podcasters as well. So I just think in content creation, period. And then too, like, you got to do media training. You got to, there's a lot of work that self-development in this space that you got to do. You got to train. Like how I'm talking to you guys now, like where I'm at in this space, you'd asked me 3 years ago if I would be here. Like, I don't like doing public speaking. I've spoken on the stage at Podcast Movement, at Afros of Audio. And the funny part is I usually freeze up. I spoke at an event briefly just to thank them and why we're supporting them. And I looked at the crowd, and that was the first time since I've been in this space that I actually froze. And for a second, I was just like, oh shoot, like I didn't know what I was going to say. So for me, I'm learning. I had a talk last night where somebody told me something that they noticed when I'm doing interviews. So, and she's a public speaker. So I was like, thank you, because I knew I was doing it, but I didn't realize I was doing it. But I think like training yourself and investing into your personal development, learning how to interview, learning how to have a conversation, and just like learning how to speak and communicate your ideas, because people don't realize you can be trained to do that. I'll leave it at that.
We wasn't trained to turn. They still calling us.
Yeah. So what that was they heard that you were speaking on a bunch of shows, and now they trying to get the plug. No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. We will not plug you in. You got to go directly. Ain't no discounts. The price is the price. And it is what it is.
I do want to ask you too, bro. Like, what's the toughest moment? And we'll give you hours too in all transparency, but I would love to know, bro, what's the toughest moment that you've had during the business and your podcasting where you was about on the brink of quitting and you got back from it?
When? I wake up every couple of days. I wake up like, why did I do this to myself? Like, what are you doing? Like, sometimes I do question, because me being in the forefront, and shout out to a couple of my members, because I remember they got on me. I didn't want to be public facing. I wanted to be in the shadows. I wanted to just build an organization. I wanted the organization to be itself, not because of me. But looking back, I understand that I had to, and it has yielded more positive results than what if I had just stayed in the shadows. But for me, it's like, I wake up and I'm like, man, like why do you do this to yourself? Because it's almost obsessive to me. So, and I think for me though, what gets me out of that is somebody will tell me like, yo, like, thank you for this. Or I go to a function and I see, like, I look in the room and I'm like anybody watching, I'm not being disrespectful. It's like a proud dad moment. It's like, you're like, wow, look, this is what when I do my summer social, and I'm looking around the room and I'm just like, man, this is dope, right? When I talk to the people that have become friends and family to me now, it's like this would have never happened if I had quit. But there are moments when they quit and the struggle, and usually, the money's not right sometimes. Like entrepreneurship, there's the part where everything is going up and then everything goes down. It's hills and valleys, and it tests you, and it tests who you are as a person. It tests your relationships with the people around you. There's going to be moments where you have to, decide whether you're going to have integrity or not, if your principles are going to be tested or not. And if you're not growing in this space, you're definitely going to fail. But for me, it's usually, life. like when life starts happening, you got all these different things happening at once, and it's like, man, how am I gonna pay? I'm gonna pay this person that I gotta pay next month, and the money dries up, and then you gotta take out of your own pocket, you gotta take away from your kids, and it's like, then you're like, oh, you gotta take away from your obligations, and it's like, man, like, why am I doing this?
Oh, you ain't never lie.
I mean, that's
for me,
entrepreneurship, though. That's
Yeah.
the
But
word.
I ain't quit it either. I don't like losing. When I played sports, I played on a lot of losing teams. I hate that feeling. So for me, it's like work through that feeling, work through that quitting feeling. Really understand why you want to quit. Is it just? And sometimes it's just I just need rest. Sometimes I'm just stressed out from I took on too much. You know, sometimes it's just like I said, life is in the way, and I'm projecting it on this, right? So. But for me, I don't like to quit, and I've committed too much time, money, and energy into this for me to let this fail. So I take it as General Ibn Tariq, who led the Moorish army into Spain, right? You know, he burnt the boats, and he told them there's only one way home, and that's straight. And that's kind of the position I'm in. It's like there's nothing else here. There's no plan B. So when I do feel like I'm going to quit, I gotta be like, all right, you can sit here for a couple of days, a couple hours. Whatever you got to do, if it means you got to go play your Xbox, go out and party, make some beats, whatever. Sit in there for a minute, but then you got to get back to the mission. But that's why it's good to have a great community, because I have such a dope community I could tap into when I'm forever feeling a certain way, or like how I see the community stepping up, for against the backlash about what they feel about this whole news this week with podcast movement. You realize, yo, I can't let these people down, or I have a place here, right? So like, it's a weird experience, but when I feel like quitting, I just lean back on my community now.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah.
I gotta relate it. I don't want to make this like a unilateral thing, though. Here's the thing about this, though. This is what life is, Corey, and we talk about like this is what being a fucking adult is. Honestly, think about this. Unless you get a job where technically you just don't have to elevate. You're okay with your salary, whatever, like a union job. They'll negotiate your raises and things of that nature. And you can just kind of do your job and clock in and clock out for 20 years, get a pension. And anything that you do that has progression, you are faced with this type of situation.
Right.
Any type of entertainment industry, right? Artistry, movies, it's all the same thing. It's something that starts as a hobby that develops, and it's like, what are you willing to do to get there? The problem that I have, that a lot of people have, is the lack of resources. Really, you have super talented people. I mean, talented, that would strive in a multitude of things, right? How many guys play Rucker and all these basketball that could have been in the NBA that never got the opportunity because they didn't have the resources to educate them and show them what to do to get, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you got a lot of people that want to do a thing. They want to do a thing and they feel it right here. And they're like, no, this is really what I want to do. But unfortunately, because they don't have the resources to guide them and show them what to do, how to do. And then when they're feeling like quitting, to reassure them, no, keep pushing. This is why they stop. You understand what I'm saying? But it's no different than you wanting a promotion at work. It's not, but what's the difference, right? You still got to do more, figure out a way to do this, figure out a way to do that. If it's a project due, you understand? It's always the same thing. I think it's just, I don't want to make it seem like it's just podcasting or it's just like entertainment, because it's always the same thing, Corey, because life is always going to life, because you keep getting older, you keep meeting people, and then your life develops, right? So the most simplistic time is a child, when you don't have any fucking responsibilities. That's when you should just go full throttle, because your parents is looking out for you and all like that.
That's it. But it's how bad you want it to get to where you want to be. That regardless of what the fuck it is,
right?
Especially podcasting, bro. We started this shit with a hope, wish, and a dream. I started this shit, bro, as just a lead generation. I'm trying to get some sales. So instead of me having to pitch your ass, I'm like, come on the joint. It's the pandemic. Tell me about your kids. Let's just have a real conversation. Let's be people. Right. And then if you like me enough, you're going to throw me a bone on the back end. We're going to do some business, and I'm going to be able to get some commission and keep my motherfucking job. Then the shit exploded. Like the shit was just crazy. So I'm like, all right, cool. But like every day we're tasked. We got good problems. And it's all about perspective. You have bad problems, you have good problems. Us as a business, we have good problems. We got so much content, we don't know what the fuck to do with it. We don't know when we're gonna do this. We don't know how to do that. We don't know how we're gonna get to the next event. We don't know this, but we got the opportunity. And that's the fun part, is figuring out that fucking puzzle. So the person, like the analogy you were saying with the basketball, like I don't, that's the only thing I disagree with you. Because if you're that nice in basketball, you know there's a pathway. Just like podcasting, there's a pathway. It's not linear.
But think about what you're saying, Cuzzo. That you play basketball, right? You play basketball, right? And that's why I use that analogy, right? Because you got Rucker Kingdom, you got so many dudes and one that are like dead nice, right? And how many people, let's say from the urban street basketball scene, made it to the NBA? What is it, 2? With Rafe and somebody else?
But
I think it's like 2 out of.
But think about all them other dudes. Did they put in the work?
Can I jump in real quick? Because I think part of the conversation we have to have with this too is like when I decided to go back to school for programming, right. I went on the U.S. statistics, the jobs growth. You know, you can look up the job growth in particular industries.
Yeah.
And at that time, I looked at the data when I decided to register for school, and it showed that in the tech space, I mean, at the time, the whole AI chat thing wasn't like known like that, but and how it changed that landscape. But it was showing year over year growth year over year for the next 20 years. So I projected it over 20 years. We got to keep it real about like the sports and entertainment space, right? Like for instance, the NBA only has a certain amount of players they're gonna get, right? NFL has only baseball only has a certain amount of players, and then as you go, you know, it's like a pyramid, right? As you go up each level, it gets smaller and smaller. So when we're talking to people that have these dreams, we gotta have honest. We need to have honest discussions about not just shitting on a dream, but like, yo, the probability of you doing this. Now, granted, resources is a thing because you have people like, as we know, like probably one of the reasons why LeBron didn't go to college was because he would have got caught in that whole NCAA stuff because of how much resources was being poured into him, because he, you know, because he had a community that was willing to invest in his talent. And that's why I think, especially in this podcast space, community is important, and a lot of creators like throwing the word community, and I get I get triggered by it because I could tell you from building my community, it is a place of support, is a place of where people, when they feel like they're falling, it's not just me, but other members are there to lift you up, inspire you, help you, point you in the right direction. Maybe you don't have access to resources, but they connect you to something, or put it in, you know, say, hey, check out this newsletter that tells you about grants, do this, whatever, right? And I think that's the part, is the community. And like when I did music, like I think my rap group, we had talent. If we had the right people behind us, we had the right community and support behind us, I think we would, you know, we might have been hip hop legends. I don't know, but but it's okay because you learn to just like find a new, you know, I'm not gonna lie, found a new dream. Like if you asked me I was going to do this 10 years ago, I would have laughed at you. This was not in my radar. So sometimes you guys have to teach our kids to have a little flexibility of knowing when to pivot. Like, okay, like you did your best. You got to, I always tell my sons, as long as you can look at yourself in the mirror and say you did your best, you're fine. Don't beat yourself up over it. But it is hard. It is hard. Like I've been blessed. I curated a very supportive community. But it goes back to what you're saying, Jarrett. Like you went out there and you started having conversations with people. I think a lot of times we forget the human element and having real discussions, and just sometimes asking a person like, yo, like, how can I help you? You'd be surprised how that gets you how that gives you the resources you need.
There it goes.
Come on. I think sometimes when they're networking, they're thinking about themselves and not realizing. And I love movies. And I always tell people, man, The Godfather will give you the playbook on how to do things with people, right? You know, like the one day he has to respond to everybody's, you know, that ask him a favor, his daughter's wedding, right? That's the one time. Like that tells you, like you can't just take from people. You also got to give to them. And I think when you're talking about resources and building, you know, and getting access, sometimes it is the people game you have to play in order to do that. I'm not saying you got to compromise yourself. I'm not saying you got to lose integrity or you got to do something, you know, like the internet loves to say, like, you know, this person went to the whatever grove or whatever, did whatever, the Illuminati. But I'm not saying you got to go like those routes, but you got to find a balance to get the resources. And a lot of it too is how you come, you know, how bad do you want it? I remember I joke around. I remember when I was in the music industry, I wanted to learn how to make beats so bad. I used to mess with Premiere. Every time I would see him, like, yo, Primo, like, I just want to sit in the studio with you. I'll sit in the corner. I won't say a word. Like when you said that, I wanted to laugh. I just want to sit in the corner. I was like, bro, I will travel with you. I will figure out a way to pay my own way. I said, you don't gotta pay me, bro. I used to mess with him all the time, and he'd be like, man, you crazy, leave me alone. Like, but I would harass him, right? Every time I would get a chance to say something to him. He probably don't remember, but that's how bad I wanted it. And somebody's going to hear it, and that's why when people come to me, I always make myself available, because I understand, and that's the whole premise of the community is to try to solve that problem of like, yo, like if you don't got the resources, I always tell people, if I don't know it, I'll try to find somebody who does. Yeah, but don't sit here and don't sit in silence, right? The worst thing you could do is say you're struggling or have a problem or you can't find something and not speak up about it.
That's a fact, though. I'll give you a quick Primo story. So, Cuzzo, you was there when we did the mixtape release party. So my first sales job was right next door to D&D Studios.
Oh man,
right fucking next door.
When we had on the shirts.
Yes, when we had on the
shirts. We had on the shirts. Okay.
Right next door. So imagine my first sales job. I'm going outside. I'm seeing Betsy Johnson. I'm seeing mad people, and I see Primo. Just Joe Buttons is walking past people in studio sessions. I'm sitting there just smoking a bogey or whatever, just like, what the fuck is going on here? Then, so long story short, we did our mixtape release party right downstairs. It was a restaurant where everybody used to go to, boom, boom, little bar spot. We did our whole drink. There's like 50, 60 people. It's flooded out. So I did a song called Thank God, rap the joint. Showbiz and AG happened to be in the motherfucker. Didn't see them. They just happened to be downstairs getting a drink. Heard me rapping. Was like, yo, who the fuck is that? Came upstairs, pulled me aside. He was like, yo, that was one of the craziest stuff I heard. Went upstairs and got Primo. First of all, I didn't even know what show. I'm smacked. I didn't even know what show that. He's like, yeah, show me, what up, baby? I'm just vibing. I'm around love. Went upstairs, got Primo. Primo came in, sat in the back corner, heard us rap, bro. He was like, yo, you one of the illest motherfuckers I've ever heard. Like, broke one of our joints, all that shit. Did music. He would wanted to fuck with us, but he was doing the Royce and the What's the Name album. Yeah. And they end up closing that down, bro. I don't know if I told you. They wanted to fuck. He wanted to fuck with me.
I remember you. I remember you being smacked because we all was smacked. That part I remember. That's why I said the t-shirts, because we had a time that night that I remember that, but I didn't know the other part.
He came to me and said, yo, that was one of the illest joints I've heard. The Thank God joint, and it just like that was just. So for me, when you talk about that rapping shit, it's like, yes, I feel like I could have did it, but there's also so many things that I could have done that I wasn't thinking about, and that's on who? Me.
Right.
That's on me.
But that's what I don't want to do. I feel like we do that a lot. Like we blame ourselves for not knowing a thing, or we blame ourselves for not having a certain amount of resources or things available to us when we're coming up. And we didn't make the system. Let's be clear, Corey. We didn't make this system, right? We're all trying to figure this shit out. We're just trying the best to maneuver our way in the system, and that's why I said, like, this is a major problem, not just with podcasting. This is, you say, okay, the NBA only has a certain amount of numbers. I could go, you're absolutely correct. And there's only going to be a certain amount of doctors, and there's only going to be a certain amount of lawyers, and I can say that about almost every industry that is above, like I said, the average, just go to work, get a regular job, anything that you can make a, let's call it real mid to upper tier living wage, not the minimum wage. It's a limited number to get there. It's a limited number. I can say that of almost any industry, but that's what I'm saying, right? Because I've gone through this, because I've spoken to so many people and seen so much talent, I just think that a lot of times we are missing out on people that would have been like pioneers in that industry that end up quitting because they didn't get the right support that they needed in the moment that they needed it. See, that's the key too, right? It's the moment, right? So perfect example, Corey. So Cuzzo starts the business. He's already doing the podcasting, right? Okay, it's working. Him and his boss have a misunderstanding, and he decides to step away. His boss owns the IP. He changes it. It wasn't more than a title at first. It was called Rankable. Yeah. So if we're going to tell it, let's tell it all the way. It's called Rankable. He then wants to own it now, and he says, I'm going to create my own. I had nothing to do with him create. He came up with the thing. He did all of this. But then he got to a point, and he like, this is what I need to begin to move this thing forward. Now, not saying that he couldn't have gotten somebody else, but let's just say, had I not been able to provide those resources in that moment, we'd have never went to Podfest. We'd have never went to, Pod Movement. We'd have never met David Shane. A lot of the things we did, because I was able to provide a certain amount of resources and this and that, and we put it together. not to say that he would have quit, but it would have changed the trajectory in the moment of how he felt about how to continue with this thing. And that's what I'm talking about.
But
It's hard.
Yeah, good. Now that
you gotta. I'm the timekeeper. So we gotta wrap it up.
Yeah, we watching time. We watching
No.
time.
I wasn't. I ain't gonna.
No,
lie.
you wasn't.
Yeah, 124. Yeah, 124. We watching it.
We gotta wrap up now.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, you got a hard stop?
Tell us,
I don't know you got a hard stop.
you know, I'm the timekeeper. So we're gonna end.
Oh, okay.
You can keep this brief, Corey. Final question. Out of all that you've done with Black Pod Association, what do you feel is like one of your greatest success stories? You can keep it light, sweet, and we'll end it off there.
I'll say I think the thing that I didn't realize that was going to happen, which is it should have been common sense, and was seeing the community members themselves building relationships amongst themselves and actually starting projects and doing things and creating these groups, these sub communities and these other groups, and just being able to create a space where no matter what the person's political, sexual preference, political affiliations, religious, whatever, they're all there for podcasting, and to see them working together, supporting each other, doing trips and, doing these things. I think that's the biggest success, because that's how you saw that problem about resources too, right? Like, we have a place now that people have learned to just tap into each other. So I think that's the big seeing people turn from friends, from associates to friends to family. I think that's the biggest success of our community.
We need a union. I'm just saying. There you go. Yo, Paulette, all the nights, where you been at, man? You've been absent for like 3 joints. I know we coming up on time, but Corey, I'm just gonna put this idea to you, man. I would love for the BPA to maybe somehow, some way develop something like a podcast union or something like that. I think because there's always strength in numbers, right? So not only can people pay to come in and get a membership, but have representation.
Well, advocacy. We have 3 pillars: is support, is community support, education, and advocacy. So we do.
Yeah.
I do advocate a lot behind the scenes. I don't throw up the fanfare all the time, and I do have conversations with people who are influential in this space, and I do ruffle feathers as well. So, but advocacy is a very big part of it, and I'm hoping in 2026 to really make that even a stronger part of what we're doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. So, we been out for
we got you, my guy. We got you.
Out. So, with that being said, anybody else got any other questions?
No, let's do it.
Listen, man. Corey, we appreciate you coming on the show, man. We got a chance to meet in person. But welcome to the More Than the Title family. Yeah. So welcome to the More Than the Title family. So what we normally do is we don't believe in gatekeeping, and this is why we continue to do this. Well, so now that you're a part of the family, what that means is 2 things. Number one, we've had 220 something guests. Anybody before you now have access to, and now any future guest that comes on the show, whether you're in the same industry or not. If you see somebody that you would like to connect with, we start a group chat. We get you guys on a call. We jump off the call and let you guys handle business. You now have access to it, right? That's our way of also paying forward, right? Paying forward. So that's number one. Number two, if you're ever doing any type of an event and you want us to show up in New York or whatever, even if it's for support, we don't have to cover the event. Just let us know. We'll check our schedules, because we love to also show up and support our guests. And that's also like a thank you to say, we appreciate you coming on the show and being candid about your story and stuff like that. So, please take us up on that offer, because it takes a village to start these things, right? And it also takes a village and a community to keep it going. So welcome to the More Than the Title family, Corey. I appreciate you, man.
Well, with the BPA family, but well, we're gonna talk. Bro. I've been wanting to talk to you guys since we met at Podcast Movement anyway. So, sidebar, we're gonna have some conversation.
We family.
We had a good time in DC.
Yeah.
We had a good time.
DC, we got a story for DC.
We had a good time in DC. So with that being said,
motherfucker, I'll get you, Polo. I swear to God, I'm gonna get a whole section. Nigga want to eat an orange now. I hate it.
So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, again, I said another phenomenal guest. Phenomenal. And I didn't forget, you know what I'm saying? So listen, this guest came on, and one of the biggest takeaways that I got from this is the fact that he dedicated himself to something and he continued to strive and improve his education to get to it, right? This is the message of the podcast in general, ladies and gentlemen. This is why it's created. This is why we are on episode 220 something. We want to give you guys the information, and we want to give you the understanding that we can be your resource, we can be your village, we can be your support system, but we can only do as much as you ask us to do or you show us that you want us to do. That's why community is so important. That's why we do fan appreciations. That's why we go and we do these shows in mom and pop, restaurants and establishments within the hood to show you guys that we are the community and you can put your faith in us. So just understand that's what it is, and understand if you want to do something, like Corey said, there's a number. No matter what industry you're in, there's a number. Only a certain amount of people are going to get there. Like Jarrett said, the question is, how bad do you want it? Which reiterates what we say every single time we end off the show. The dream is free.
But the hustle goes separately, y'all. Y'all know what it is. We see y'all on Tuesday. Have a great weekend, y'all. I fucking love this shit. Corey killed this shit.
Bye.
What you know about me? Seen it all, heard it all. Oh, what you know about me?